Once the docs or Woody clear a guy, then it's up to the coaching staff how much they want to do with a guy or not. And whether it's Blade Tidwell or Garrett Crochet, most competitors, once they get the go-ahead and they feel good mentally about where they're at physically, they want to go from 0 to 60. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of that, which has made some players angry with me, but I truly am looking out for their own good. Again, I like winning more than I like losing, but one of the things that's tormented me more than any loss we've had here is, I think, being too aggressive with one of our players in the past. And I don't want that on my conscience. We got to look out for those guys. And I do think there's a building up phase with not just with a pitcher, but with a position player. So both those guys can throw and swing, but whether we're going to ask them to play all 9 innings for 3 days in a row in non-ideal temperatures, that's probably not going to happen.
But they will be available for this weekend?
Yeah, 100%. Especially if you ask them.
Also, on Alberto, from a coaching staff standpoint, why do you take the risk on bringing in a kid when you don't know if he'll be eligible or not? And what have you seen from him since he's been here?
Yeah, I think that was a decision based on what his ambitions are. And, most kids talk pro ball or individual first. If you've ever visited with him, once the portal situation started with him, every comment seems to center, as it relates to his future or his last year of eligibility, seems to center around winning and team, and where his team made it. He was in North Carolina last year. Those guys took really good care of him. They've got like a family relationship, Coach Forbes and him. They went to Omaha, and they were there trying to win a national championship like everyone else. So I think all the kids' ambitions kind of revolve around those team goals and winning and trying to be near the end where you can win the last game.
Other than obviously Alberto's status, will he likely be the starting first baseman?
Oh, I'm not sure who that'll be, to be honest with you. My dad volunteered to be that guy the other day because I forget what family problem that, not a big one, but something to solve they were talking about. And I said, I'm too busy. We're trying to figure out who's going to play first base in a bunch of other positions too. Really, we could go first, second, short, and third. And part of that is we have a little more internal depth or internal competition. I think those are hand in hand than I originally thought we did with the position player stuff. And I think a part of that is a credit to the way some of these freshmen came back from the winter. There's a couple that came back with a completely different vibe in a good way. And there's a couple that came back where they look like they did their work. I mean, the winter's a time where you can really get a little more physical in a short amount of time. And there's a few guys that I think have created, I don't want to say problems, but more discussions or debates up in the office. Who goes here? Who goes there? So I think you might see 4 different guys standing over there at first this weekend, but that may be the case for several positions.
Coach, full disclosure, I'm a Hofstra alum, and I was just curious.
All good.
If you knew anything about the school, I'd heard of them before they came on the schedule.
Yeah, and obviously we are losing greatly the battle between coaches because Frank, he was a big leaguer for a long time and really successful, and I clearly was not. But I've also heard from people that I trust in the college baseball community that they really do things the right way. They play the game the right way. They got some guys that can swing it. Last year they had a bunch of guys with high stolen base numbers. So I think offensively you're going to see a group that's capable and has a good approach. Pitching-wise, it's kind of interesting. We've already tried to do our homework like they are. There's a lot of guys that we'll need to dig up information on because they're new to the school this year. But I've been in that situation before at Missouri where you're just dying to get outside. So even though you all may be bundled up this weekend, it may seem like they're in the Bahamas. I don't know what exactly they've had temp-wise up there, but you would have a better understanding. It's cold is the bottom line. So I know they'll be fired up to get outside, as every school that's playing an SEC school or ACC for that matter, whatever conference, they'll be fired up for the opportunity to have something they can hang their hat on win-wise. But the biggest thing that stood out is several people just say they really play the game the right way, which in my mind means they'll play smart too, which means they're not going to hand you anything.
Tony, have you decided who you're going to start this
Yeah,
weekend?
yeah. Liam will start on Friday, and then Marcus Phillips will start on Saturday, and we will not announce our Sunday starter. Kind of how we've done it. I think dating, Drew Beam stands out because he kind of, not accidentally, was last-minute decision to start on Sunday his freshman year, opening weekend, and never relinquished that. So going into opening weekend with these pitch counts being the way they are, we want to have everyone available and focused on winning opening day or winning on Friday, and then we'll worry about the rest of the weekend. Having said that, you'd like to give someone like Marcus the just due of preparing properly and, not sitting there all Friday waiting to go in the game when he's actually the starter the next day.
What do you like about Marcus as a starter? What has he maybe done over the offseason to earn this role going into the year?
More mature, more under control. The self-belief is more real. I think last year we went through ups and downs of it was there, then it wasn't there, and then sometimes it was trying too hard to be somebody he's not. He dang near started a fight one game, which fortunately we won and we were able to joke about in the outfield, but I think a lot of it was just him searching for that formula of what's the best version of himself. And I guess ultimately what I like most is he's no longer that guy I would mention all the time last year. Kind of having his back is like, realize, yeah, this guy's ultra talented, but he's from a northern state. He was a position player. He's young. He really should only be a second-year college student. So because of last year's experience, all those things are behind him, which is a positive. And you could also say, hey, it's also no longer an excuse or a reason why he wouldn't have success. But I think he's worked hard in a bunch of different areas, and he's much more well-rounded as a pitcher and a competitor.
Yeah, sticking with the pitching theme, Dylan, Brandon, and Teagan seemed like they were a little limited this weekend. Where are they in terms of their progression to getting longer innings?
Yeah, it's tough when you just throw out first names, and it's all nicknames and last names for the most part. But I knew who you're talking about. And a lot of that, like Teagan, for example, that was trying to get everybody action in the weekend so they're fresh going into next weekend. So some of those guys, ideally, we were playing with a scoreboard, and we were trying to win technically the internal scrimmage there. But a lot of those guys, it was just nature of how the game was. But to me, a guy like Teagan at this point, and some of those other guys too, it's more about them being physically fresh and ready to go out there. We know who those guys are, and Teagan's been in a ton of different situations. I know he'll be confident when he pitches, so really it's about making sure they're good physically going into that weekend, and no reason to crash and burn those guys or utilize them too much last weekend.
I know it's not going to be for this weekend, but progress report on A.J. Russell. What does he continue to do and come along here the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, he continues to bother me about throwing more. So it falls into that basket we were talking about earlier. I think he has reached the stage where it's no longer, a building up through a throwing program, or you wouldn't call it rehab anymore. Now he's starting to throw a little bit. So it won't be long. There's still some stages or steps to knock out, but it won't be long before he's that guy saying, I'm ready to close the game or start a game, or let me throw 100 pitches, and even though he hadn't thrown one pitch in a game yet, which, again, you want guys to have that want-to, but you got to pick your spots with that. And again, I'm no patron saint. I think I'm a bad guy on social media, some people say, or whatever, but it's not the time of year to do that stuff. I think we used Kirby 8 of our last 8 games, and there were some days off, so we're not that abusive, but that's the time of year you do that. I mean, but some of these other guys you mentioned earlier, Peebs, Fisher, they have pro careers down the line, and we have an entire season to play. And it actually benefits our team when there are some nicks and knacks or a pitch count, for instance, because it forces you to use more guys. And leading into SEC play, we want to leave no stone unturned. So we at least have the best guesstimate to who can do what and who can't. So we can put our best foot forward in whatever that first conference game is. But for now, obviously, the most important game is Friday against Hofstra.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So who are you cheering for on?